I know that people have very strong opinions on this subject matter. So, as to not have any of you come for my head over this, I'm going to explain why I still teeter on whether or not Dylan deserves more sympathy than she has been given. Because when it comes down to it, we do not know all the facts about anything about this case, especially though the relationships between the roommates, any of the roommates. And so I do feel that the stories are important to look at from each angle, very, detailed, I guess. And at least when it comes down to Dylan versus Bethany, I do feel that Dylan may deserve more sympathy than Bethany. Bethany gives me bad vibes. It's like she rubs me the wrong way more than Dylan does. If everything I'm about to tell you is accurate. If not, then Dylan is just an extremely good liar and actress. So I definitely realize that I could be giving sympathy to the devil. I realize this, but let's say that I'm not, okay? So this video is going to kind of be a Bethany versus Dylan, but also just kind of why all the different things that I've thought over this case that makes me think that maybe Dylan deserves more sympathy. So, for one, let's start with both of them did not go to any of the services that were held for any of the 4 victims after the murders happened. I don't like that. Like, these are your roommates, your friends. I would have been at every single one of them just to honor them. But no, neither one of them went. They both had someone else read a letter for them during that televised ceremony that was held, the one where Hunter was at and stuff and blah, blah, blah. But Dylan is the only one that went to Brian's court and actually read something that she wrote. Bethany had somebody else, Emily, read her letter for her. So again, Bethany did not show up for these victims, in my opinion. I mean, she clearly didn't, but for the victims, my opinion, So that right there is kind of a 1 versus 0, you know what I mean? Dylan 1, Bethany 0. But the next thing is immediately after the 911 call was made, even after, I'd say, because Bethany technically is the one that made the phone call. But after the 911 call was made, it's Dylan that's doing most of the talking. She talks to the police and tries to explain whatever. She's talking to the friends that gather in the street. And then it's also her story that is then perpetually pushed on us through the mainstream media and focused on through the mainstream media. And it's her story that the police kind of zero in on, that, oh, this is what happened at 4 a.m., blah, 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 right? Oh, but she didn't hear Kaylee, she heard Xana, right? You know what I mean? They kind of took whatever little bit Dylan did say and ran with it. And I almost feel like they used her story to create the story that they then made for Brian frickin' Kohberger being guilty. On the body cam footage from when the police first arrive, when they first talk to Dylan, Dylan seems as though she had been crying, and then she's just trying to explain, and she's answering whatever the cops are asking her, right? First thing out of Bethany's mouth on the cameras is, "Can I still go home for Thanksgiving?" So clearly, the first and only thing on Bethany's mind at that point was, I want to get the frick up on out of here. Was to run, to get away from the scene. This could be because of horror, shock, trauma, or it could be because of guilt. Either degree of guilt, not saying guilt like, oh, she did it, but guilt of what she knew. I think both Bethany and Dylan did see the bodies of Kaylee and Maddie before they called 911. On the 911 call, how Bethany is like, no, don't, you hear her say in the background a little bit. To me, that sounds like she's trying to prevent someone from making her see it again by opening the door, or preventing that person from seeing it themselves, which would mean like, oh, I've already seen it. It's horrific. Don't look at it, you know? But this, what I'm about to say next, is kind of only just opinion, kind of pointless opinion. But I cannot stand the way that Bethany sounds in the beginning of that 911 call. That sounds so freaking fake and so rehearsed that it irritates the crap out of me. Dylan, however, gets on the phone and she's like, can I just tell you what happened at 4 a.m.? That's where the whole 4 a.m. timeline started from, right? That's where it was birthed for the rest of us, right? If Dylan had taken some sort of hallucinogenic drugs that night, whatever, she would have a very spotty memory. And she would be like, okay, this I remember for sure. It was 4 a.m. when all this weird commotion was happening. So I'm going to say this, right? What do I mean about Dylan being on hallucinogenics? Well, there is a rumor that Dylan did take some sort of hallucinogenic substance that night. And that's why she has such a spotty memory. And why in the beginning, we didn't really know what Dylan did that night, which I think I've always thought was really highly suspicious, right? Because it was Dylan's story that they were pushing on us that much, but yet we didn't really know what Dylan did that night. We knew what Bethany did. She went to the sigmachi party, but we had no idea what Dylan did, really. I think it's because she was doing hallucinogenics at the house with someone else. I also want to bring up this, okay? They say that they were watching Vampire Diaries last, and that's what they were watching last before they went to sleep, and blah, 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 right? Then who the hell and when did somebody watch Hannibal in the living room? Look at this picture. Clearly somebody watched it after Vampire Diaries. Like, it was obviously the last thing that was watched on this TV. When and who the hell watched it? As far as that jacket of Dylan's that has blood on the front of it in the middle, I mean, come on, women, think about it. To me, that is probably menstrual blood. And they tied it around their waist, her or a friend, to cover up the mess that had been made in somebody's pants. Like, that's, I don't know, that's what I think that is, to be honest. I could be wrong. I'm not saying that that's exactly what it is, but that's what I thought it was. Right away. I'm like, dude, look at where it's at. You would put it around you to cover your butt, and then you would tie it around your waist to cover the back, and then you would probably get blood on it if you had to sit down to go in the car ride to get home or whatever, you know? I think that's a huge possibility, and that's why they don't talk about that or downplay it, is because it's totally like her blood or some other females that's not one of the victims, you know? Now, the text messages between Bethany and Dylan, I've already told you that I full-heartedly believe that we do not have all of that conversation. We don't. It's clear that we don't. But Bethany's reactions versus Dylan's reactions in those texts says a lot to me, in my opinion. Bethany seems very detached, very one-word answered, and very like, yeah, I know, huh? Yeah, me too. It's crazy, right? It just seems not real. Dylan's kind of does, because she's like, hey, I'm freaking out. Like, what the hell? But at the same time, when you step back and look at it as like, oh, if any of this was staged or fake, then it does seem fake as hell as well. The messages between them. I just do not. Okay, so here's the thing with Bethany, okay? There's one thing about Bethany that I do think is good. And that's the fact that, but we never got to see it, which is stupid, but that's the fact that she had that exculpatory evidence that it was not Brian who did this, right? So if she had evidence that it was somebody else besides Brian, that could have been why she wasn't going to Brian's courts and not supportive of that whole theory, because she knew it was a lie. But she's so scared of who she knew it was that she didn't want to go to court and say it. You know what I mean? I feel like Bethany ran and is so quiet for one of two reasons. She's either traumatized or she's guilty. Not of doing the murders, but guilty because of what she knows, like I said. Aside from that, everything about Bethany's responses rubs me the wrong way. I kind of sympathize with Dylan because if I was in that situation, I would try to be telling everything that I knew. I would try to recount everything from that night. And if it didn't make sense to me, then no, it would not make sense to the authorities or to other people hearing it. And Dylan seems a lot more like headstrong than Bethany does. This is just my opinion, but Bethany seems way more like shy and like self-conscious and like doubts herself than Dylan does. So I feel like Dylan would stick up for them way more than Bethany would. I used to get sad and think that nobody stood up for them, but now it makes me even more sad because that video that I showed you, the audio of Kaylee and Maddie, clearly someone did try to stand up for them, and that was Maddie. And it cost her her life. That's insane to me. Like I hate that Lifetime movie is coming out because I know it's going to, it irritates me because this is so much worse than any horror movie I have ever seen. The coldness, the calculated maneuvers, and just everything is so freaking insanely sick and sad, completely sad. And someone should have stopped this. Anybody who witnessed, heard, or saw anything, you need to freaking come forward. You have to. If you die with this, oh my Lord, whatever, that's your deal, but every day that you do not tell the truth, you're betraying them. In my first video, the Ethan and Xana audio attack video, at the end, the girl that says, "I just know they've been fighting," something inside me tells me that is Bethany saying that. The pitch that she reaches, "I just know they've been fighting," very squeaky voice, and then the way she sounds in that stupid 911 call, I think that's Bethany, okay? And I think that Bethany was one of the first people to leave once those perpetrators screamed, "Get out." Because right after the perpetrators say "get out" in the Xana and Ethan audio, you hear a girl who's crying say "okay," very high-pitched, and I feel like that's Bethany. I wholeheartedly know in my soul that Bethany did witness Ethan and Xana's beginning of their attack. I sort of believe that Dylan did just because of what Dylan said about her hearing someone say, "I'm here to help you." Because we clearly hear that at 1:15 to Xana. So Dylan must have been there and heard that. Why she says it's at 4, who knows? Maybe the hallucinogenics, maybe the lies. Who knows? Which, I want to talk about the lies real quick, because I already said it in one of my other videos that this agreement between the limitation of what Dylan and Bethany would say was not necessarily agreed upon by them, that they were forced into that agreement. Do I necessarily think it was the perpetrators that forced them into that? Not necessarily. Think about this. For a fact, the Greek council was contacted long before the 911 call was made. Any of the damage control and the covering up, I feel, is because of the Greek council. The people in charge covered their asses, and that's why we have this freaking botched story and this botched crime and this botched investigation, right? Remember in the beginning, they were saying that Dylan heard 2 boys on the stairs and that she thought it was just frat boys, and then she heard them rummaging and stuff upstairs. What happened to that story, right? Another thing that rubs me wrong about Bethany is like the whole, she was outside with Maddie and Murphy, and then she just ditches Maddie and leaves her outside. But she also says Maddie was super drunk. Why are you going to leave your big and your friend and your roommate outside when she's super drunk and it's super cold? That's rude. And so many things about Bethany shows that she's not a very friendly person and she doesn't really think about other people. This is all opinion, of course, obviously. I do have a huge problem with that room downstairs, that spare bedroom, being all in disarray. But that's not for this video. We'll go into that in a different video, whatever. I'm trying to stick to Bethany and Dylan right now. Back to that story about Bethany and Maddie outside. I think that's a lie, though, because we do not hear that on the 1112 King Road audio, which we would if Maddie was calling for Murphy because she had lost him, right? She was searching for him. We would hear that. We'd probably also hear the girls giggling before freaking Bethany took off inside. So I think that is all a complete lie. I also kind of think that Dylan running to Bethany's room is also a lie. I don't think that they did that. I don't think those boys who did this left for a while. They could have left right after they did that with Kaylee. But I don't know. I feel like they stayed there for a while, either to clean that kitchen and all this other crap. I think these girls, especially maybe Bethany, and that's why she's so silent, I think these girls were extremely, like, traumatized and manipulated in that time. I think they were forced to do a lot of things and see and lie about a lot of freaking things. And I feel not only by the perpetrators, but by the police, especially Dylan. I want to take a look at this right here. This to me shows evidence of when Dylan was still trying to stick to what she actually remembered and not what the cops were telling her she remembered. Because just look at this. Let's read this real quick. But I have no idea what he looked like. I don't like. When I looked at his picture, nothing came back to me at all. So that, like, I don't know. I feel like if I saw that, my mind would be like, oh yeah, that's him. But I don't remember at all. That to me, right there where it says, nothing came back to me, is because, oh, no, I don't recognize this guy. I've never seen him before in my life, this picture of Brian Koberger. And where she says, I don't know, I feel like that if I saw that, meaning if I saw him at the house, that when you guys then showed me the picture, I would be able to be like, oh, that's him. But I don't remember because that's not who I freaking saw. But that's just a few of the main reasons why I still teeter on whether or not Dylan deserves more sympathy than she has been given. But I think I'm going to end this video here. But as always, I want to address the people who witnessed this. Because there is no more denying that so many freaking people witnessed, whether it's auditory or visually witnessed, either both or one of the two attacks, Ethan and Xana's or Kaylee and Maddie's. Okay, there is at least 10 freaking people who witnessed these attacks and know the effing truth. You guys need to come forward. No group, no membership, no title is worth taking this to your grave. Like, this is sick. You should be ashamed of yourself. And I hope you guys do feel guilty. A whole hell of a lot of guilt for letting this go on for as long as it has. I hope you can't sleep at night because this is wrong. This is sick. And this is such a betrayal to these people, to these victims. It's insane. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, God bless. But to my subscribers already, I want to say that thank you so freaking much. We have passed 2,000 subscribers. That blows my freaking mind. And I think it's awesome that you guys are here with me on this little journey that we're going through. And I hope you all had a very good holiday and a great new year.